I wrote this down. There's so much to say about Rabbi Daniel Lapin. I didn't want to screw this up. So if you can't hear me, I should wear like my bifocals now because I'm getting kind of old. So hang in there. It is my humble privilege to introduce to you today's guest speaker. Nationally acclaimed speaker, advisor to President George W. Bush, syndicated radio talk show host, best-selling author, and my rabbi, Rabbi Daniel Lapin. I've heard Rabbi Lapin on the radio over the past decade, and I've often heard him say, the more things change, the more we need to rely on things that never change. As president of the Cascadia Business Institute consulting firm, Rabbi Lapin helps organizations apply the ancient wisdom used over the centuries by Jews to excel in the ever-changing business climate and translates this ancient wisdom into modern-day management tools. Rabbi Lapin gives more than 50 speeches annually to leaders of corporations including Amway, Nordstrom, and Boeing. Rabbi Lapin founded Toward Tradition, an organization of Christians and Jews devoted to educating America about moral issues and the spiritual value of economic freedom. Today, Rabbi Lapin will speak on finding grandeur in the daily grind, 3 steps on the path to prosperity. After his presentation, you will have an opportunity to learn more about ancient Jewish wisdom by meeting with the rabbi and purchasing a copy of his best-selling book, Thou Shalt Prosper, 10 Commandments for Making Money. Please let me add that speakers of Rabbi Lapin's caliber generally charge an honorarium to make presentations to organizations such as ours. In lieu of such an honorarium, we have agreed to allow Rabbi Lapin to practice the fine art of capitalism. I would encourage you to buy the book, as Brad Palmer and I have already done. Thou Shalt Prosper will change your views of money as well as attitudes towards yourself and help you identify the critical steps that make success possible. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow chamber members, distinguished elected officials, and first-time visitors, Rabbi Daniel Lapin.
Thank you very much indeed, Chris, and I'm just delighted that my wife Susan and my 2 daughters, Miriam and Tamara, are able to be here to hear that sort of introduction. And welcome to all of you, and especially to some very close friends that have traveled across the water to get here. Tom and Barbara Hemphill from Bainbridge Island, right over here, and they're visiting your meeting this afternoon. And David Crocker, a mortgage specialist from Gig Harbor, who came up to say hi as well. So thanks, folks, for letting me see some familiar faces in the audience. I'm quite accustomed to not seeing familiar faces, though, because in radio you see no faces at all. And it's certainly one of the most challenging things about radio, to actually sound as if it matters when you're absolutely convinced that not a single soul is listening. Tell you what I'm going to start off doing. Find the person next to you. Shouldn't be too difficult, even after a good lunch. And what I'd like you to do, and take it easy, I'm not asking anybody to make any rude statements here, but I'd like you to put out one finger like that and shut one eye. Shut one eye. If you have trouble shutting your eye, put your other hand over the eye. And now, using only one eye, I want you to try and make your fingers meet. Move fairly quickly towards each other. Oops, missed, what do you know? No, sir. It doesn't work. Those of you who are trying to do this with yourself, find a friend, would you? Because since we know where our arms are, you can actually do it yourself, even with one eye shut. You've got to do it with somebody else, and what you should have found is that most times you're going to go right by one another. Why does that happen? Because one eye just isn't enough to get a realistic perspective on the world. You've absolutely got to use 2 eyes. You totally lose depth when you use only one. What I want to talk about is that most people use only one eye in understanding business and understanding prosperity, understanding how to create wealth. Only one eye. There are actually two eyes. We also have two ears, and the point is stressed in the way we're constructed. But let me give you a better picture of what I mean here. Which is the most over-decorated room in your house? Come on. I don't think it is. Do you have monogram towels in your living room? Do you have little silly pieces of soap that look like seashells? Where do you keep those extravagant decorations? It's in the outhouse. Except in civilized places now it's an in-house. But it's that little room in the house that gets extra decoration. I don't know if you've noticed it, but you come to some houses, living room's pretty normal, but you want to see the really good wallpaper, go to the toilet. That's where it's really at. You know, people do that. Why? What's that all about? Or here's something else that people do. You know, when dear Aunt Agatha, after a long and happy life, dies at the ripe old age of 120 years old, why don't you just slip her into a plastic bag, put her in the alley, City picks her up on Tuesday? Why go to this entire performance? I mean, everybody's got to take off work to go to this place where she gets solemnly interred in the ground, which these days rising real estate prices is no joke. And what's that all about? Answer? The answer is that whether we like it or not, we are constructed with certain things inside of us that we don't always recognize. And failure to recognize those things makes life uncomfortable, it makes life stressful, and finally it makes life unsuccessful. These things inside of us are a yearning for connectedness with the spiritual. Now when I say spiritual, I want you to be very clear that I'm not speaking about church, I'm not speaking about synagogue, I'm not speaking about religion, I'm not speaking about God. I'm using the word spiritual as an engineer. I was trained as an electrical engineer earlier in my life, and that's the phrase that I am using it in terms of. Spiritual means something you cannot measure in a laboratory. Spiritual means something that you cannot touch or feel, but it's nonetheless real. And we human beings are constructed with a spiritual reality which, if you deny it, will stress your health, your relationships, and your financial success. What do I mean by spiritual and physical? I want to just clarify this so you really get this clear. Spiritual is something that you cannot touch, you cannot weigh, you cannot measure it. There is no scientific instrument for measuring it, but it's every bit as important in life as the physical. Let's look at a couple of examples, if you would. Spiritual is, one of the big rules of spiritual is that it's very hard to destroy. For the most part, spiritual doesn't get destroyed. Physical is easy to destroy. Give you an example. One of my young daughters a little while ago dropped my brand new copy of Microsoft Office 98 into the toaster. And I ended up with a blob of molten plastic. Don't look innocent there, Tamara. You know who it was. I'm not going to say anybody's name. But little blob of plastic. That thing cost me $180. I was as mad as could be. And I called up Bill Gates. And I said, I have accidentally dropped your CD of Microsoft Windows 98 in the toaster. See, I'm big.